Hello, my name is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk to you about online hearing tests. Coming right up. When you think of online hearing tests, we have to first step back 1 second and ask why. Well, some people are saying, first off, they notice that they might have a hearing problem. And maybe they're working really hard, they have difficulties getting in for whatever reason might happen. And that is one of the reasons why people want to have that first level screening that you might have. Another possibility for hearing tests, and we hear this all the time actually, is that I'm scared that that person will try to sell me something. So we hear both sides of the argument. There are other people who look at hearing and hearing aids as a transactional item. Now, I want to just briefly talk about this. And if you look at my YouTube channel, you'll see this. You can look at return of hearing aids and several other things as transactional items. Now, a transactional item is like this. This is my iPad. I go in, I know how to set it up. I go in, buy it, and get it. The iPad case, a transactional item. I'm looking for the right kind of thing that I get it. If it's a better price from the exact same thing from here versus there, that's a transactional item. Because we don't really need a lot of help to set that up. Transactional items have to be something that has more in the user's hand to take care of it. Whereas hearing is a customized process, just like when someone's wearing their glasses. Now, I don't try to wear my glasses as much on YouTube because you get a little bit of a glare. Even if you do it perfectly, sometimes you get glare. Here's what happens, that when you have your glasses, you really do need to have a local evaluation. And I also talk about that on local hearing aids too. So that's something that we have to step back from when we think about online tests. But let's give you a couple other pause points, especially in a COVID crisis. Now, the COVID thing happened around March, and we're sitting at almost 4th of July in 2020. And it's still, there's a lot of conversation about this issue and a lot of fear, and I get it, I understand about this. I had a phone call actually from Pennsylvania. This guy calls me up, he says, I saw your YouTube channel, I want to come down there and get hearing aids. And I said, hold on. Well, I went to this one place, but then they had to close down and on. And he went back and forth, and I gave him several good hints about what he might think about when he goes to that local audiologist. He was like, man, I was ready to come to you. And I was like, I really want you to see that local place because that's important to me. And it should be important to you. He said, you're absolutely right. That's exactly right. But he was thinking of it as that online thing. Now, one of the things you have to understand is that hearing tests, when they were created in the early 20th century, and actually audiology happens because of World War II. All the people that are coming back in the VAs complaining about their hearing, we had no way to address it. So we had to come up with a whole field out of differential psychology. Okay, abnormal psych is what actually. So they started to look at normalization. What is a person who has normal hearing? And instead of DBSPL, they started to come up with an idea of DBHL. Now, DBSPL is sound pressure level. That's just the basic sound of the worlds, okay? And you can never get to 0 DBSPL. Now, you can, but you'll never hear it in your entire life. Even if you get down to around 20 or 30, you'll feel like the absolute presence of sound has just gone away. It'll mess you up. And there are some places that get down to near 0 points. Now, most places are, when you walk into a room, there's a noise floor. Now, if you're in, for instance, we lived in South Tulsa, and I have my iPhone that has a really good app. It's called Sound Level Meter. Sound Meter Plus. $2 app the last time I looked at it, and it's within about 1 to 2 decibels. It's really pretty accurate. And I use this when I check out a church, or I check out our lecture hall, or I check out other places to see what that volume is. Okay, it's not a perfect sound level meter, but it gives you an idea. So in my old house, it's 45 dB. Now there was a road beside us that was a big road called Memorial, and you would hear a lot of other stuff going on. If the railroad tracks would happen in the right way, you could hear that as well. We moved to our new house in Jenks about 3 years ago, and suddenly I walk outside. There's no one really happening. It's kind of later at night, and there's nothing really happening. I check out my app. Instead of 45, it's at 35 dB. No wonder I love it so much, because it's so quiet. You can have a whispered conversation. Now, here's the thing. Most sound booths, if you are in a good sound enclosure, you're talking about maybe around 30 decibels. That's the noise floor. You see, some people say, yeah, but I want to have dB SPL. I want to have a perfectly zero sound room. By the way, there's only 2 of them in America, and Starkey Hearing Aid Labs has 1 of those. It doesn't really exist, and that doesn't help you with the evaluation necessarily, okay? Now, here's the funny thing. In the state of Oklahoma, and several other states have the same part of the law, that if your testing room, now see, audiologists tend to get sound booths where dispensers don't always invest in that. Now, but for the dispenser licensure, it has to be less than 45 decibels, or quiet enough to 45 decibels, for the person to be able to come in. And if they came in and it was 50 or 55 decibels, like we see in some of these mobile units that come out to places, well, then that is a non-diagnostic event, meaning that you're checking, you can screen someone's hearing, but you're really not giving diagnostic or prescriptive information. You're saying, oh, I'm already confused. Stick with me here. If you're not in a quiet enough environment, you're not going to have an accurate test. Okay? If I'm not quiet enough, I can't know what the levels of your ears really are, because the other noises interfere. Now, you know this when you go to a restaurant. When you're at the restaurant and you can't understand people, you have to speak up louder, and other people do too, just for the conversation to flow. And some of these restaurants can be, 70, 80 decibels. It's very loud to be able to hear and understand people. So here's what you need to understand. The most, let's say a business environment in an office situation, non-bullpen kind of thing, would probably be about 50 to 55 decibels SPL. If you get into a noisier place, let's say you work in a more of a bullpen environment where there's all kinds of phone calls, you could probably see 55 to 65 decibels. And so it depends upon the place that you're in. So when you're in that sound room, the reason why you need to have that sound booth we do actually inserts headphones, so that insert directed down to the ear, and we can isolate the right and left ears. It really gives us that ability to know exactly what's going wrong. Because if you don't have a good evaluation, you can have something called false positive. That means that you think that you have a hearing loss, the evaluation shows that you might, but you really didn't have a hearing loss. You see, online tests hope that you have good headphones that fully cover up your ear with as much as 5 pounds of pressure. Oh, wait a second, that doesn't do that on that. Well, what if it's an iPhone thing with the little earbuds? You're not controlling the environment. Do I know that the telephone's not going on in the background? Do I know that the dog isn't barking in the background? And did you hear the evaluation? So you missed out on certain sounds. And if you're talking about an online test, I ask this basic question. Follow the money. If you go to a site and they tell you that if you're thinking about hearing aids, do this online test. And then they do the online test and say, oh, holy cow, you got a big old hearing loss. You need these hearing aids. And you're thinking, maybe I do. And then you buy it and then you find out, wait a second, this isn't what I wanted. This doesn't work for me. And I've had patients that come into my office and I say, you know what? You have a minor problem, a borderline normal issue. It's not even in the mild to moderate range where I would make a recommendation. You don't need hearing aids yet. Okay? I even call them future patients. Okay, that's how we market. They're down the road, but maybe they'll never have to worry about it. But sometimes they probably, or at some point down the road, they probably will have to think about that. But I don't want to talk. I talked to patients, we had 2 of them just yesterday, came in, oh my gosh, I do have hearing loss. And as we looked at their circumstance, they really didn't, but they were struggling in some of their places. That hearing aids are not going to benefit them for the or for the price that it is. You see, that's integrity, okay? When you do something and you do it correctly for the person. Where is that integrity inside of that online test? I'm not trying to say everyone's cheating you, but you have to ask the question, follow the money. Why would they tell you that you are normal if they're trying to sell you something on that online place? I am required by law to have integrity. Now, it doesn't mean I do or don't. It means that that comes from the inside. And so you have to also, after we have to come here, then you look at it from the outside. And integrity is something that you prove to people all the time. So the integrity of the online evaluation can be a problem. So that's why I recommend that if you're questioning whether you got hearing loss, you need to find that local audiologist. We're in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. If you're listening to me in any other place, I promise you, you can ask questions down below. I live in this zone. I will actually find an audiologist that I can find in that zone. Now, if you're outside of America, all bets are off. I can't really give you that information, but I will do my best if you ask that question. So I just thank you so much for listening. Again, we've had other videos that talk a little bit about this as well. And subscribe, like the video as much as you can. Thanks so much.